performing self-awareness and calling it growth is insane behavior, because just because we name the pattern doesn't actually mean that we've broken it. And I think my number one learning experience when it comes to being self-aware is all of the friendships and all of the people that I had to let go as I grew, because I understood that just because people were self-aware and just because they had the potential to break a cycle does not mean that they actually would. And obviously, the best way to learn from other people and these experiences in life is to view them as a mirror and be careful not to judge other people. And the more that we go through, the more we have the ability to grow through. And when this happens, at least for me, it really helped me to meet other people from a place of compassion versus meeting other people from a place of like, well, why don't you just change it? If you're so self-aware and so emotionally aware, why don't you just change it? And of course, like if it was that easy, everybody would do it. And I think the thing is like, it's not actually hard. Like the process is actually very simple. And a lot of the times we know what we need to do. Like we know that we want a different outcome, and we know that in order for a different outcome to happen, we have to make different choices and we have to alter our habits, because obviously these are the things that add up and give us the result that we currently have. I'll give you a personal example that I think is really, really common that I saw in a lot of my relationships, really up until this point. I used to go to dinner or to lunch with the girls, right? And we would speak about the guys that we were talking to or relationships that we were having in our life and how something needed to change, or we weren't being treated the way that we wanted to be treated, and how we were going to let it go, and all of the things that we were feeling and all of the things that we knew that we needed to do. And then after having that entire conversation for the 50th time, going over all the patterns and all of the emotions and all of these cycles, I would go home and then I would text the guy that completely mistreated me, the guy that I just talked about how it was emotionally unregulating to be around, how he didn't treat me the way that, I wanted to be treated and the standard that I wanted to uphold. And so we go to these dinners and we almost gossip about, oh, how emotionally intelligent we are, and oh, how much we have it together, and we name the patterns. But just because you name it doesn't actually mean that you break it. And it almost, I don't want to label things better or worse, but in these habits of gossiping about how emotionally aware we are, and over and over and over and over again, and then choosing not to break the cycle, is almost worse, in my opinion. Because these are almost like contracts that you are making with yourself, and you're giving your word. You're basically saying, okay, I now am saying that I know that there's a cycle, that I know that there's a pattern, and I am actively refusing to break it. And obviously, a lot of this, you're just programming your reality that is going to be the standard that you continue to uphold over and over and over and over again. And a lot of people, you cannot fall in love with people's potential, because it's so fascinating to watch somebody explain their patterns over and over and over again and then refuse to change. And I will tell you, I am not the person for you if you like to stew and you like to sit and you like to talk about everything that's going wrong and everybody that's treating you terribly. And because once you start talking about this and you start going down that lost language rabbit hole and that negativity rabbit hole, and you don't ever speak about how to actually solve the problem, you just speak about the problem and the problem and the problem and the problem, what you focus on grows. So if you're always just speaking about the problem and the problem and the people that are not treating you right and all of the terrible patterns, and we're never actually talking about the solution, why is there a point in even having the conversation in the first place? Because then it's just gossip, and then that's just energy that you're just continuing to feed yourself, and I don't want to be a part of that anymore. And it's tough because as somebody who sees patterns very quickly, and I'm always down to speak about it because I love dissecting it and understanding the psychology of how the human mind works, because everybody's mind works differently and everybody's method of operation, order of operation is different. And I find it so fascinating. It's so easy to just get sucked into the drama. But then after being sucked into the drama and also being the one that created it, just because we don't want to be bored or just because we're addicted to being stimulated all the time and absorbing, to be fair, other people's problems. We absorb other people's problems and habits and gossiping behavior on this device all the time. Story times go viral all the time. Why do you think that happens? Because our minds are obsessed with finding problems to solve. So we almost create problems that were never really problems in the first place, just so that we can feel productive as though we are solving them, even though we're not actually solving anything or digesting anything or understanding what's going on the inside. And okay, I see this pattern, let me see how I can change it. No, it's I see this pattern, okay, let's go gossip about it and then see if I can get other people's opinions on. Maybe you are speaking to gain knowledge and to gain wisdom and to gain someone else's experience to learn how to better navigate it yourself. But for the most time, that's not actually what I see happening. It's just like, oh, I'm bored, or I don't want to slow down and actually feel it. So let's just have this hyperfixated conversation that is just honestly going to go in circles and nothing's ever going to get solved. And I've gotten to a point now where I would just prefer not to talk about it. And that's not because I want to pretend like it's not happening. But once I see the pattern, it's like, okay, how are we going to pivot from this point, Christina? Or are we just going to acknowledge that the pattern is there? We're going to meet myself with compassion. I'm not sure if I'm willing to change it because I don't know where I need to go from here. And then from that space, I can say, okay, do I need to speak with someone who I actually value their opinion in this space? And this just goes back to like allowing yourself the time to slow down enough within my own life to be able to provide myself clarity, whether that is being more intentional with the people that I'm reaching out to when I am asking for advice. Like a lot of times I see people that are going through maybe relationship traumas, or they have a relationship and they want to seek advice and they go to the friend who honestly does not have a good relationship, but you consider them your friend, so you validate their opinion. But they were also the one that was sat there gossiping with you. So the odds that they're going to give you good advice is probably not very high, right? You're not going to go ask somebody who has hair loss or who doesn't have a lot of hair how to thicken your hair, right? You're going to go to someone who has thick hair and you're going to be like, hey, what did you do? So we have to be so careful not to arrive at a space and then fill it with lost language and fill it with habit repetition and fill it with basically just a performance of, oh, I'm so emotionally intelligent and I can understand pattern recognition, but then we don't ever actually do anything with all of that information. So we have to be careful not to just information overload and kind of regurgitate that in a way that just continues the loop and continues to allow us to repeat the pattern because the excuse sounded nice in our head, and actually digest it on the inside. So yeah, I've gotten a lot more quiet once I've realized this, because the more that you speak and you tell your stories, the more information you give, and privacy is power. So if you're going to open your mouth and you're gonna speak, make sure that you know actually where you're speaking from inside of yourself and what the intention is when you open your mouth. So hopefully you got some value from this. I have a plane to catch. I've been in Bangkok. Literally, we touched down for like 12 hours and we're off to Phuket. So I'll see you guys tomorrow in Phuket.